Live streaming is on.
Yeah, I got
Okay,
it. I heard it.
we are connected now. Finally,
Yeah,
it's taken a big effort.
it was David's fault.
Technology, as you know, is the devil. No, it's not. But sometimes it just works against you because it just wants to, and they are going to dominate the world. So we can do what we can do. I'm sorry for the wait, guys. Thank you for the patience. You
Thank
saw
you,
I put on a lot
everybody.
of music for you, so you didn't kill me. But hello, Team Sale. Good morning.
Good morning. Well,
How
good
are
afternoon
you?
to you.
How are you?
I'm a little hungry, so I'm eating pineapple chunks.
Good for you. Good for you.
Yeah.
I am drinking. Let me see. It's water. I should have switched it for something stronger. How's life? How's everything?
It's pretty good. You know, it's very COVID around here.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but fortunately, one of the reasons I got into comics was that I enjoy a lot of time to myself. And so the quarantine has been comfortable for me in that way. I don't miss people the way that other people do. So that part of it is good. I've gotten my hands are. Can you see my hand? I don't know if that shows up very well.
Yeah.
But it's kind of knobbly now, and it's arthritis that has really acted up over the last year, and it's actually harder for me to draw. So that's very frustrating. Which is why I haven't been doing much drawing, even though I have all this free time. But hopefully we're trying to. I've been talking to a lot of doctors and doing acupuncture and stuff like that, and hopefully that'll work itself out.
So it's not what Bernie had, the nervous system problem.
I don't know what Bernie had.
Bernie had a problem for a while. I was talking to Chi the other day about it, and I was about to talk to Liz, to his widow, because Bernie for a while had problems in his hands. And at the beginning, he also thought it was arthritis, but it wasn't. Yeah. So it was a nervous thing, nervous system thing. So when they localized what it was exactly, it worked out, because they had been for years, trying to go for the arthritis, but it wasn't.
And was it just painful, or did it make his hand shake or something?
Shake, yeah.
No, I don't have any shaking.
He had, he couldn't. I don't know exactly. I should ask Liz. She knows it better, because I mentioned it the other day, and he remembered, more exactly more what it was. But it was the shaking I'm not sure about. But it was like he couldn't. He had pain, swollen hands, and he couldn't really draw. That's why he spent some years. Remember that where he wasn't doing comics, because he couldn't draw.
Yeah. No, well, I hope this works itself out better than that. But no, it isn't. It isn't nerve. I know it isn't that. I also have a high uric acid level.
Yeah.
Which is usually associated with gout. And gout is usually associated with, at least in most people's minds, not with doctors, with diet. But actually, 80% of the uric acid that is your body generates it no matter what. It isn't diet related.
Yeah.
The problem is that my kidney is apparently not getting rid of the excess. Now, there is the pill for that, and I've started taking that pill, and so that's part of the problem too. So we'll just see if it gets better. I can. I have dexterity in this, so I can make an OK sign, and I can hold a pen and a brush. But it's very bad down here in my little finger. So when it's rested against paper, it throws it off. For pencil, it's easier, but the brush or the pen, you need to be very exact, because it's permanent, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So that's a problem I'm having right now.
Have you tried with digital? I mean, with an iPad or something, because the way you hold the Apple Pencil is completely different, and you don't need to just put on this finger.
I haven't. I don't have a pad, but I hadn't thought about that. I didn't know that the way you hold the pencil is different.
It's completely different. Let me grab mine. So just a second, because Paloma has it in the other room. Paloma, dame tu iPad Pro, por favor. The artist in the chat probably can tell you much better than I do. Sorry, I'm dropping. Much better than I do, but the way the pencil works depends on the position. Depending on Procreate or Clip Studio or whatever. If you handle it, this way or this way, it changes the tracing. You know what I mean? You can do it more like a brush, more like diffuminated, if that makes any sense. So the more comfortable way. This is the old 12.9. The new 12.9 is the same size, but it has no frames. It's all screen. Okay, so depending on the way you handle it, it's going to change the tracing. So if you have a badly uncomfortable position, as you said, like this one, if you just change it, you can take it another way, and it's going to the way you put the pencil on the screen is going to determine how you draw.
I understand, David, but I would still need to rest my hand on whatever I'm drawing on.
Yes.
So that's the problem.
Mm-hmm.
Changing the angle is different, but I'd still need to touch the screen the same way I would touch paper with this side of my hand. And that's the problem.
See what you mean. What you mean. No, but not even gloves or anything like that are working either?
Gloves? I haven't tried gloves. No.
Yeah, a glove. Some artists just put a glove on this finger, cutting the other fingers.
Oh, okay.
Here, so they can support it on the screen or something like that.
Huh. Okay.
I'm just coming with shitty ideas, but trying to help. I'm sorry.
I've never seen that or heard of that. So
yeah, I've seen artists working with tablets or with iPads, because of the shredding. They use a glove. They don't want a glove, for these fingers because they, for whatever, for tightness. But then for this, to put it on the screen so it doesn't mess it up, they have a glove for support, and also, so it's not that tired, because it's whatever. I don't know. I'm just coming with crazy shit. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Trying to give you ideas in case it helps. What?
Enough about that anyway.
Yeah, no, just go with them. You just said you like your own time, you like to be on your own, but is there really nothing you miss? I mean, from before this apocalypse started, like
going
to a movie or something.
Going out to eat, restaurants. Not movies that much. I don't. It's been years since I went to movie theaters on a regular basis. I mean, I live right next door to a movie theater, which is closed now. But it's I don't go very often. I'm content to wait, and I'm content to watch it on TV. Oh, you know what I miss is sports.
Mm-hmm.
And I was talking with Chi about that, and that especially baseball season, baseball is a perfect game to have on while you're working, because it moves slowly, and on TV you can see a replay, a good deal, or if you're recording it, you can just back it up, and so I just miss. But I miss sports. I I miss the Spanish league, the La Liga. I miss.
That's starting this week.
I think American football is a very stupid game, but I still would like to watch it.
You mean egg ball?
I mean, what, egg ball?
Yeah. Every time some American goes with not your kind of American, but the other kind of American goes with, we have the real football. You have soccer. My answer is no. We have football. You have egg ball.
Okay. Well, you have rugby or something. You know, it's the ball is the shape, same shape.
Yeah.
Rugby ball is bigger, but anyway, yeah.
Nah, it doesn't matter. I was going to say that I think La Liga restarts, if I'm not wrong, it starts this week.
Do they?
Yeah.
With no fans, right? Like
no, not yet. But when there's talks that when we, most towns or states get to phase 3, because some parts are still in phase 2 here. Like Barcelona, town and surroundings, and all the state of Madrid are in phase 2, but most of the rest of the country is already on phase 3, and just a bit small, like the Canary Islands are in phase 4, which is like almost back to normal, not completely, but almost. But there's talk that when most of the countries in phase 3, they are going to allow people on the stands, on the stadiums, but like 30% to 50%, depending on the size of the stadium, and of course with separation, mask, etc. So they want the fans to be able to come back, but they are like, for now, no, nobody.
Yeah.
And then we'll be really, really, really careful, and we'll see what's going on in a month, And
yeah, I do miss conventions, and because it was a good way to see people, even though I spend most of my time alone. I enjoyed going to conventions and seeing people in that way. And it was like, and there I see a lot of people, and I'm doing a lot of drawing all day. That's all I do. And I also get to see my colleagues, which I never get to see.
Yeah.
Outside of that, so I miss that. But since everybody's sort of in the same boat, I don't feel like other people are doing shit I don't get to do, or we're all in it together. So and I once it became clear how serious and how global it all was, I just settled down and said, okay, I'm writing off 2020 as far as conventions or anything like that goes, and probably waiting for a vaccine before doing any more conventions. There's just too many people, too many other. There's no way to regulate it.
Yeah, it's funny because this morning Paloma got
maybe another couple of years.
Yeah, it's funny because Paloma got an email this morning, from her gym, saying, "Hey, we're reopening. Are you coming back?" And she was laughing and literally answered, "Do you really think I'm that crazy to go back to a gym before there's a vaccine? No, you just cancel my subscription now." It's like, you guys are nuts. Do you think anybody's going to? Whatever. If a crazy guy wants to go to the gym now, let him. I am not going to.
Well, in this country, as you may or may not know, we're very stupid about such things, and very you can't tell me what to do.
Yeah.
And so, like I say, people are stupid, and they're just dying to not wear masks and go out and do whatever shit they want to do. Already with the protests in the streets from the Black Lives Matter protests, there's a lot of COVID cases been raised in all those cities, including this city, Seattle. But people were protesting in almost every major city in the country, and so I expect a rise with that. And yet, still, stupid people will be saying, "No, there's no connection." So I just wait for a vaccine. I mean, That's like it.
Absolutely. It's funny because talking to Chaikin like a month ago when I started this, he told me exactly the same thing. It's not that I miss conventions that much and I miss them. It's that I miss being with my pals, being with my colleagues. You know,
Yeah.
just getting out for dinner and see the people and talk to the people that I never see. You know, he can see Bill, he can see whoever that is around the LA area. You know, that you can get together for whatever reason. As Bill tells me, you know, sometimes. No, Chi told me. Sorry. Sometimes you know he just got in the car. I don't know if you go with him, but in the car with Dave Johnson, and they just go visit Howard and they spend a while. But he's like, yeah, I can see those guys. But most of the other guys, I cannot see them aside from a convention.
Right.
You know, most of my pals, I am missing that thing that I know that's where I'm going to see my friends.
Right.
And my
Yeah.
colleagues during the year.
Right. No, and otherwise it's Facebook or, you know, things like that. I don't do much of what you and I are doing right now. I don't do FaceTime. I don't do Skype or anything like that, really. Susan does. Susan misses people more. Her business is opening again, has opened again, still slowly. She's an esthetician, and so primarily transgender, working on transgender people. So it isn't. I mean, it's cosmetic, but it isn't. It's more vital than just
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
You know, looks and stuff.
Yeah.
And so people were very anxious. A lot of her clients were very anxious about getting stuff done.
Absolutely.
So that's been she's been very happy to get back to work, and she
Absolutely.
She was Skyping with other friends and stuff too.
Absolutely. In her case, is vital. It's people's identity. You know, I can understand that she was anxious to come back and help them, and for that people to, you know, I'm in the middle of, you know, crossing that bridge to become the person they want to be.
Right. Yeah. Especially if they already had surgery scheduled, for instance, and there's a lot of preparation that comes before that, for months and months before that, and all that was interrupted. And so, you know, anyway, all that's cranking back up now, but everything's been interrupted. That's just more vital in that way.
Absolutely.
But
with what's happening to you with the hand and all that, have you thought about, you know, writing? But I mean, like recording your thoughts.
I've thought about writing for years, and I've tried to. My brain doesn't work that way. I've talked with other writers. This all began when our contract, Jeff and my contracts, were up at different times. That he'd fulfilled his contract at DC and went to Marvel. This is back in the late 90s. And before I still owed DC a lot more work. And so we were separated. And that scared the hell out of me. It made me very anxious that I couldn't imagine, and in fact didn't really ever have not ever had a partnership like that. I'd hoped for a while that with working with Darwin would it be kind of like that, because I knew Darwin had it in him to write for me. And in some of the Superman Confidential stuff, he really showed that he did, and that was as fulfilling as anything. But he also clearly had his other ideas that didn't fit with mine, and he's so creative, and it I know he enjoyed working with other people. He enjoyed not writing and drawing other people's things. Like works with Gilberto and just a lot of other people he collaborated with. But he really was his best when he was writing and drawing himself.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, but that got me to thinking about, well, why don't I try? And other people would push me. Why don't I try writing? And I just I don't have ideas. I have an ability to help shape
Mm-hmm.
other people's ideas that I'm confident with. I'm a good collaborator. But no, with a blank page, I just don't. I don't have a. What it did. It at some point, I had a thought. My father was an English professor, but he was also a writer, and he wrote like 20 or 30 books. But it's all of almost all of them are either history or literary criticism.
Mm-hmm.
Not fiction, certainly.
Yeah.
But on his own, he wrote 2 novels, and they were terrible. And he couldn't get even his really close friends who were in the publishing business and editing business. They just had to tell him, nobody wants to read.
Not your thing.
But he was just enthralled with writing. The process of writing them just made him so happy.
Mm-hmm.
And it's weird to think that he could be so good at looking at other people's writing and not be able to apply any of that to his own stuff, but he couldn't. And I took a lot of solace from that. I said, "Oh, okay, I have certain things I can do, but writing is apparently not one of them."
Mm-hmm.
So.
It's funny. I thought it would be more or less like with Alex Ross. I've been told that I think Kurt told me that Alex is always has a million ideas, but always needs somebody to shape them for him because he just cranks ideas back and forth, but he's never able to give them any shape. To just go with them. He needs a writer who takes them and say, "Okay, wait,
right.
Now let's make it work. Let's make it work. This has to go in this direction or this other." And then Alex, goes with it because he can create the concept, the visual concepts, but not going from there.
Yeah, I don't have any ideas. I can help shape.
Mm-hmm.
If an idea is presented to me that clicks, like people will present ideas, writers will present ideas to me that don't click. Which is just the way people are, and the way everybody is, not just creative people. But when it clicks, I can easily help both visually and the storylines. I can help with that. Once I know what we're getting down to. I tried really hard. Richard Starkings and I started. Well, I was complaining one day. This is now 5 years ago, probably, that I couldn't find any writers to work with. Jeff was off doing something else, and he was doing Marvel TV, and not writing comics. And Richard said, "Well, I'll write for you." And he'd been writing Elephant Men for a long time, but I think he suddenly felt like after doing that, he felt like he'd reached a point where he thought we could collaborate because we're very good friends and have a lot of the same ideas about things. And we worked and worked and worked on it and just couldn't spark each other. We couldn't find something that really made sense and excited each other.
Yes.
And so we're not we're not talking about that so much anymore. He, I don't know if you know the Ask for Mercy is his new collaboration with the English gal.
No.
It's a fantasy thing. It's sort of girls and dragons and portals to other worlds and things like that. And but a lot of that is, and she's quite young. She's in her early 20s, and she's had these ideas though for her whole life, and they really clicked with. Her name is Abigail. Damn it! What's her last name? I've forgotten.
It'll come. Don't worry.
Harding.
Uh-huh.
Abigail Jill Harding, I think, is the. I go by 3 names, but and she's quite talented. But everything just clicked with Richard, and Richard all of a sudden Richard had ideas just built off of what was going on in her imagination. So it's a very personal thing in that way. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Jeff and I are so. It's so weird to me that we're so different as people, and yet it just was magic to work together.
Opposites attract, right?
Yeah.
Is he coming back?
I think he'd like to. He's but right when his contract ended, COVID happened.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so I don't know what's been going on. We've talked a little bit, but then my hands got in the way. So all that's to be worked out. We don't know.
Are you more of a fantasy guy or a hard science fiction guy? Like, what I told when I talk about hard science fiction, you know what I mean? Arthur C. Clarke, Asimov, Heinlein, not the fantasy aspect kind of Star Wars kind of science fiction, but the one that is more based on science that, on let's create a portal to whatever.
Right. No, I'm not that at all. Richard is. Although I've never heard him talk about how well read he is. I think a lot of it comes visually with him. So it's movies and other comics. But as a genre, he's very into that. I had a time when I was really into fantasy stuff, Lord of the Rings and Conan and stuff like that. Not so much anymore. I'm more what I gravitate now more towards is crime stuff. Not true crime, which I'm not interested in at all. But crime fiction.
Yeah, noir, something like that, right?
Yeah, not just noir, but noir especially. But the trouble is with noir, I have kind of a love-hate with it in that I do like old-fashioned, really early noir like Chandler.
Yeah, same thing. Chandler, Hammett, those are my guys too, yes.
But you can't do that right now. That was of its own time. It just reads as corny now and way too cliched and full of itself. The way the narrator speaks and everything is just doesn't work. So it's hard to find a mix of things. Another guy that I've talked about working with is Stephen Frank, who I get along really well with. And he has lots of story ideas. And his newest thing is a noir that he pitched to me, but it was really something he wanted to do. And when I said I wanted to do something that was noir, he pitched it to me, and it didn't really click with me.
Hmm.
And within a couple of weeks, it seems to me, he'd done 40 pages on his own, and it really just unleashed this flood of creativity. So again, it just figuring out what's what. I do, even though I don't read very many comics anymore, and superheroes don't interest me that much anymore as a reader. As a creator, I love working with them.
Hmm.
And so I mean, I never get tired of certain iconic figures like the Hulk and Batman, and depending on how he's handled, Superman and Spider-Man, things like that. But I don't know. I think there's a Dieter Lumpen in me that I'd love to have a series like that too, where it changes up all the time. There's a central figure. It could be long stories, short stories. There was always some romance, usually, often some supernatural kind of element to it. Exotic locales. That sounds like it'd be a blast to do.
Maybe that's the next step. When you recover, because you will, your hand will recover. Maybe with the effort yourself alone or somebody else, that's the next step. Go and create your own and do something like that.
Well, now you sound like the people who were talking to me a number of years ago. Look, Mike Mignola sat down. He actually sounded like he'd lost. We were at a convention together, a very small one. And I've never really, I knew Mike and I spoke to him a little bit, but I never really had a very long conversation with him. And I was sitting with Jason Schachter and Cully Hamner at the same table. This is in Texas. And Mignola just comes over and starts. He didn't put his finger at me, but he said, why aren't you, it's easy. What you do is you just sit down and you make a list of things you don't want to draw and the things you do want to draw. And then you make up a story that goes with it. And that was Hellboy for him. Well, I tried that and it didn't work. And it's the same sort of thing. Just because I know I like Dieter Lumpen and that I think it'd be fun, it doesn't automatically jump to, oh yeah, that gives me lots of ideas. It doesn't. I need a writer. We need we need a publisher. We need so whatever.
No, that's funny.
Way for me just to bring up Dieter Lumpen and how much I like one of my heroes of Pelejero. So
Ruben Pellejero. If you guys don't know it, you should know it because you've read Tim many times mention it. But he loves Ruben. I love Ruben. Everybody loves Ruben. If you don't, you're an idiot. I'm sorry. Anyway, when you're working, do you have some kind of background music with you, or you need absolute silence? Because depending on the case, some people tells me absolute silence. Some say depends on which stage of the work I'm in. Layouts, nothing. Composing, need silence. Then when I'm finishing, I can be with music. Some people even tells me I have a podcast, which I'm like, wait, you have a podcast? Doesn't distract you? People talking doesn't distract you. So it's many different cases. What's yours?
Yeah, no, I'm a kind of mix with breakdowns. Usually, I'll just go back to working with Jeff. For most of our creative life together, it was just paper. It wasn't digital. So he'd send me a script on paper, and I would have nothing on and just sit down and read it. but also have a pen or a pencil with me and make just little boxes and break things down initially that way. And then I could have other stuff on. I could have movies on. I could have podcasts on. I'm not a big podcast guy in general, but like back to sports. I have sports on. So it's both. It's not often music, which is odd since I love music and I do listen to music at other times. But I don't put that on to work too. I'm not quite sure why.
Mm-hmm. And is there? Let's go to movies. Is there any director that you think that directly or indirectly has influenced your work? I mean, like in kinds of the imaginary you use.
It's more. Well, the genre of noir movies. So there are many directors whose use of lighting and drama visually influence me to this day. Even something like Casablanca, which is not a noir, the lighting is amazing and the sets are amazing, even though they're very limited. I mean, we're basically at Rick's most of the time. Yeah. But there are at least 3 or 4 different levels to backgrounds. Each one is lit very specifically to give a real depth to things. And it's just a set, but it looks really big. And I admire that tremendously. It doesn't often translate actually to drawings on a page. You need something maybe bigger or things like that, but it still can be inspiring in how people treat light and shade.
Yeah, and going into that, and going even farther before, like Murnau or Fritz Lang, like German Expressionism. That's right. So I see that in your work. Am I wrong?
I've never studied it. I know what it is. I know what you mean. No, it's more movies after that.
After that, movies that were influenced by the German Expressionism in a way.
Right. I mean, I'm not like Kaluta, where I like M and things like that are second nature to him. It isn't like that for me. But all of that stuff influenced the French artists that created noir. So, I get it second generation. My influences are second generation expression, and I draw much more. I think of it as expressionistic. In that I'll stretch things and exaggerate things, or get really super quiet and make it very insular for effect. When I first started working with Jeff, I was in a very much more. I was probably about 30, but it was the late 80s. And so the idea in the 80s was all this experimentation that ended up being Watchmen and Dark Knight Returns and things like that. But it really solidified for me with Batman Year One, where it wasn't really that wildly expressionistic, so that I can, for instance, greatly admire a talent like Bill Sienkiewicz, And at that point, I wanted to exaggerate things kind of more like he does. Jeff didn't want to do that at all. But I still, over the years, I ended up getting back to exaggerating more. But not in a Sienkiewicz way, in a way that was more my own. And then I've always liked to change my artistic approach given what the story is, who the character is.
Mm-hmm.
So the Superman work is different than the Spider-Man work, is different than the Hulk work, is different than the Batman work.
So Superman could be Rockwell?
Well, it very much was in For All Seasons.
Yeah.
But when I worked with Darwin on Superman Kryptonite, I consciously did not want to do For All Seasons look, both because it didn't fit the story as well, and also because I wanted that to be special to my work with Jeff. I wanted that to sit as its own thing. But I did draw, the farm and Ma and Pa Kent and everything in. They were my favorite parts. Lois, his relationship with Lois, and then every time we went back to the farm, those were the things in Kryptonite that I liked the best.
Mm-hmm.
But it wasn't at all like confidential. And yet I still felt it felt very real to me, or very easy for me to work in that way. And it felt real to the story. And those were the points where I think Darwin just wrote the shit out of it. I mean, it was just great stuff.
Mm-hmm. Let me see. People is asking questions. Do you mind to answer a couple questions from the
No problem.
fans? Okay, Francisco Gonzalez. Hello, everybody. First, I said before, and thank you for your patience. But let's go back. Felipe Gonzalez says, Francisco Howard asks, did you get involved in the details of the script on the Daredevil Yellow or Spider-Man Blue, or did Jeff have it all tied up? Well, in a way, you have already answered, right?
Right.
You helped save the story.
Right. Well, Jeff and I will talk about what we want to do, which also means what we don't want to do. And then he'll write it. And when over the years, it got to, at first it was much more hesitant and back and forth. But certainly by the time we did Long Halloween, so sometime during the Halloween specials, it was just he would send me a script. It'd be a full script.
Mm-hmm.
And but I would ask him to, sometimes he wouldn't write the dialogue. He'd say, I'll wait until I see what you get, or something like that. You see what you do. And I said, no. It helps me if I know what the dialogue is, because I'll know how much room to leave on the panel and what leads to the next thing. And you have a figure on one side of who's talking first.
Mm-hmm.
That person should be on the left side of the panel, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So he said, okay, fine. And his descriptions in the panel would often be something more like, Batman grim as we've ever seen him. And that's it. So it wasn't like a whole big Alan Moore-y
mm-hmm.
list of things that you've got to try to make sure every one of them is in the panel. So it's a full script after a conversation. And I'm allowed a little bit of leeway to change things, mostly if I add things. If I want, for instance, to have a silent beat, a silent panel, that's fine with him.
Mm-hmm.
A reaction shot or something like that. Don't get rid of anything, but if you want to add something, that's fine. But it was all very smooth. But it's a full script that I'm working from.
Mm-hmm. Also, on that vein, continuing with his questions, do you think you would go back, given the chance, to do one of those, like Yellow, Blue, this kind of miniseries with Marvel characters, or even similar with DC, like 4 seasons with DC, etc.? Like a kind of prestige format miniseries, whatever you want to call it. That is an.
I think that's the only thing that I would do, especially with Jeff. And I think if I came back with Jeff, people would expect, and if my hands would be up to it, something like another Halloween story, but like a full one, not like one of the Halloween specials. I don't know if my hands could be up to it or whatever, but no, we work outside. We've always worked outside of continuity, always, and so that all the Marvel books are. I don't know who at Marvel I'd want to do. I think Jeff thinks much more about the public than I do. Well, what do the kids want, or what can we sell? And okay, if the Iron Man movies are good, then I'm not going to do. I hate group books, so I'm not going to do an Avengers book. But an Iron Man, especially a tin can Iron Man, is something that I would like to do. I'd be happy to do. I've talked for years about wanting to do a Doctor Doom story with him, but it. I don't know. You
want to hear two great?
It would be either long or short, but a contained story outside of continuity. Yeah.
Yeah. You want to hear 2 crazy ones that I always thought you would end up doing?
Okay.
But I knew that you would never do it. That's my crazy thoughts. One is what was it? Doctor Strange.
Everybody mentions that to me.
I'm sorry.
Not that crazy an idea.
I'm sorry. I'm not original. And the other one, Ant-Man and the Wasp. Not Goliath or Giant Man. Ant-Man and the Wasp.
Yeah. I don't see that. I could see Doctor Strange, but like a lot of characters that, like we were asked by Paul Levitz to do a Wonder Woman mini sometime in the 90s.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, well, the problem with, to Jeff, I said, the problem with that is that I don't get a great emotional impact to the backstory of Wonder Woman.
Uh-huh.
I mean, I get that the reaction of the movie was partly Gal Gadot,
mm-hmm.
and who wouldn't react to her, and also the empowerment for girls, and I get that, but that still isn't the Batman's backstory, Superman's backstory, Spider-Man's backstory. I mean, Clark and Peter not Bruce, but the tragedy that has shaped Bruce's life, are all as interesting as Batman is, or up there with. And there wasn't anything I knew of and still know of about that with Wonder Woman. So I don't have that with Doctor Strange either. I don't have it. Clea was never a big deal to me. It's just a cool looking guy in a cool looking sanctum. And then this great, I grew up with the Ditko stuff. So all this otherworld stuff, all that's really cool, but I don't get an emotional backstory to him as much, or a reason for being as much.
No, he comes from arrogance and hubris, to absolute humility, and lost it all because he was an asshole.
Right.
So
similar to Tony Stark in some ways. Which Jeff still would have to figure that out for me. I don't know.
We'll see. Paula Ventimiglia asks, which other artists do you admire, or I guess illustrators, comics artists, that you admire and feel inspired by their work?
Well, Pelhao, Alex Toth. I've talked about this a lot during the years. I was a big fan of black and white work of Creepy and Eerie and Vampirella, and a lot of the artists like Angelo Torres, Frazetta, Toth, who worked in those books. Later on, I was too young for EC, but later on through reprints, especially the large Russ Cochran black and white reprints of the war books and anything by Jack Davis, I just loved. And seeing that in black and white and big is an amazing experience. And those are people that come to mind. I grew up a Marvel guy in the 60s, but I don't know that any of that influence got in, so there isn't a Kirby influence that I have, or a Buscema influence that I have, or Neil Adams.
Not even Ditko?
No, not in my, I think I knew that when I was going to do Spider-Man Blue, that everyone would kind of expect, because I draw sort of weird, would expect me to have Ditko as an influence. But it was Romita that I really wanted to emulate and learn from. And I don't think I did it very well, actually. But I did get a lot better at drawing women. And that's directly from just looking at Romita. And I had as a reader, but it's different if you're looking at it and you're trying to learn from it. That was a big deal. But no, honestly, I don't think any of those people that were really important to me as a fan influenced me that much. Toth was the first guy I really remember influencing me. That I could do that. I can think like that. What Jaime Hernandez took Ditko and combined him with Toth, sort of.
I've never thought about it that way.
Yeah,
but it clicks. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and all of that he was in my head a lot too, and thinking of black as a shape, not just where's the light source. but black as a shape, as a compositional element, is Toth. And
I always thought in Jaime's case it was Toth and Romita. In fact, I never thought.
he'll talk about.
I never thought about Jaime Hernandez like Toth and Ditko, but it makes sense now that you mentioned it. But
Well, I know
Toth
that Jaime's talked a lot about Ditko's influence, and there's certain things like, especially with the Hoppers stories, the way they dress, the pants, things like that. A lot of that is very Ditko-ish.
Mm-hmm.
Sure, I can see also because he can draw very beautiful women, and Ditko couldn't.
Mm-hmm.
That some of the Romita stuff too.
Yeah.
But he had his own way of. I can see as far as just the women go. I can see some Adams in there and other influences too. I never had much Adams influence, partly because I knew as soon as I started to try to draw like him at all, it just was unnatural. I couldn't, it didn't fit.
Mm-hmm.
And I could find other people like Romita and Ditko and Buscema. I could find kind of stuff that fit, but it wasn't until Toth that it really. Okay. And then actually using heavy black and a thin line, it was Dieter Lumpen.
Mm-hmm.
And it's been 30 years since Ruben has worked with a thin line.
Yeah.
And I am one of those people that miss it terribly. Not that everything he does isn't great, but that's the look that was really opened not just opened my eyes, or it didn't open my eyes, but it kind of solidified for me. Yeah, this is okay to draw like this.
Mm-hmm.
It validated it, and I like to draw with a thin line and heavy black. So.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I think you answered this question too, but just in case, talking comics with Gorminator, that's his name. Question: would a Halloween Batman be on the cards with Jeff? Always thought that he swore off third parts of trilogies.
Oh, he swore off. Yes. Well, that's because of The Godfather, and The Godfather is his favorite movie, and obviously influenced Long Halloween greatly. But we sort of did 3 with Catwoman When in Rome. And I think that was somebody else's idea. Might have been Dan DiDio's idea. Just trying to get some more work out of us, I think. What about the story, what happens when Catwoman disappears in Dark Victory for 6 months?
Mm-hmm.
And then Jeff started thinking, and, so there was that. But no, I think after all this time, you have to remember Dark Victory was finished by the year 2000, so that's 20 years ago.
Yeah.
And When in Rome came after that, but and my curse of showing people that I like to work in ink wash, now it's all anybody wants to see, really, which is good and bad, but it's a lot more work. but I do enjoy doing it. No, I think it's possible that would happen.
We'll see. We'll see, you guys. What is the last TV show you remember watching, or what you're watching now?
Oh,
If you're watching any.
what? I'm sorry.
If you're watching any.
Well, I'm streaming a lot of stuff, so a lot of Netflix and Amazon Prime and Hulu and things like that. But I'm watching a lot of crime stuff that the Brits have done over the years. Like Line of Duty and things like that. It's great when there's a lot of seasons.
Mm-hmm.
We call them, yeah. Because then you can really just leave it on, and the next one starts right away, and all that kind of stuff. So it. There aren't that many titles that come to mind. There's one called Scott and Bailey that I liked a lot. I watched Dr. Foster, which I'd heard of but didn't know anything about. And I thought it was going to be about this woman doctor. Well, it is, but it's really the story of how she reacts to finding out that her husband was cheating on her.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a pretty hard go. It's a very serious show and very well acted and directed. So I don't know, but there isn't anything visually that has captured me. I watched Ripper Street. But partly because there were a lot of seasons, and I liked the main actor. I can't remember his name, McFadden, I think. Anyway, no, I don't.
What about
The
Peaky
guy I
Blinders?
was watching all the time. I can't remember titles very well.
Have you watched Peaky Blinders?
I watched some of the first season years ago, and then no, I haven't gone back to it.
Okay, it's one of my favorites. That's what I was asking. If
It's a lot of people's favorites.
People is not asking questions. Okay, you guys. So I'll keep going until Tim sends me to hell. What is your favorite movie director, if you have any?
Well, in high school and afterwards, it was Franco Zeffirelli, because I just adored what he did with Romeo and Juliet as a director. It was the first time I thought about a director, I think. And I was very aware of things that I began to be aware of things that I didn't like that other directors seemed to be doing, which was especially in the 70s. There was a lot of having the camera pulled back a little bit, and especially in some other cinemas, not so much Italian, but in some in French. In French comedies, especially like Tall Blonde Man with One Black Shoe, or the Pink Panther stuff. You're pulled back from it. You're not in. It gave me a sense of pointing a finger and mocking, rather than telling something that's funny.
Mm-hmm.
And I just felt swept up in stuff that just by the camera work and the design of what Zeffirelli was doing. But that's primarily Romeo and Juliet. He did a St. Francis one, Francis of Assisi, that didn't work. Anyway, other stuff. But outside of that, it's just a number of people, anywhere from Henry Hathaway to a lot of the people who fled Europe during the Second World War, the directors that came over that created noir here. Pretty much any of them I can, but I don't follow a director in that way. I can admire it when I see it, but I don't go, well, now I have to see everything the guy's done.
Makes sense. Carolina says, since you like noir and crime genre, please recommend to Tim to watch the Netflix show Bitter Daisies.
Bitter Daisies?
Yes. I know why she recommends that one. That's made in Galicia. In my land.
Yeah.
And that was a show. It's really funny. It's a show that is made with very cheap, by the state, paid for by the state, television.
Yeah.
And Spanish big channels didn't want it. Like, nah, it's not going to work. And it's been the most watched TV show in the United Kingdom and Ireland for the last year.
Is it in Spanish or is it in English?
It's in Galician.
It's in Galician. So it'll be
it's subtitled and all that. And the other one, I don't know if you watched it, but if you haven't, I really, really recommend Wallander, the Swedish TV show, but especially the Kenneth Branagh version.
Oh, okay. There's a lot of them, aren't there? I think.
No, not really, because it's each season is 3-4 episodes only, because it's based on one book. It's like like Sherlock. It's like the same idea. Every book is like, let me say, it's a movie. It's a full movie. It's a book. So it's like every book, every episode is like 1 hour and a half or something like that, like 90 minutes, 100. So it covers, in like 4 seasons, I think total. It covers all of the books, and it's the creator of the books have been telling Americans and British for more than a decade, I am not letting you do it. He was only accepting the 3D adaptation because he wasn't the tone to be, change it at all. It had to be as harsh and as dry as it is, with Swedish crime drama. And when you watch it, literally, I normally hate Branagh because of how, over the top he is, but which works in theater, but that doesn't work so well.
Right.
But this is not the Kenneth Branagh I expected. It's Kenneth Branagh being as a good director as he can be, but without the over-the-top acting.
Is it currently happen? I know it's currently on Netflix, but is it an old show?
It ended like 3-4 years ago.
Okay.
They did like 3-4 seasons. There's not really seasons, but 3-4 seasons.
No, they call them seasons on Netflix.
What? But it's not really seasons. It's like.
I know what you mean.
The creator made this many books in this time, so he's gonna do that arc of Wallander's life, then the second arc of Wallander's life. It's really, really trying to follow what the creator did and saying, okay, I'm going to do movies. I'm not going to do a TV show. This is movies, and each movie is one of your books.
Yeah. Okay. The Fall and Bodyguard were the things that I really. The Fall, Richard Starkings told me about, and then Bodyguard, I think I I either happened upon or some people on Facebook told me about it. But they set the mark. Both of those things set the mark so high. Everything else is kind of regular, just sort of TV, which is what I understand. If you're going to have, unlike what you were saying with Wallander, if you're going to have a series, a number of, like Line of Duty is very good because it manages to have a foot in both worlds. It's very serious about things. It takes one crime and draws it out over a season. And it has your regular cast of characters, and so it feels like a regular TV show, just of a very high quality. And both The Fall and Bodyguard felt like, okay, this is what you get. This is what we have. This is what you get. That's what there is. There's no sequel. And so good. And just, The Fall I could watch over and over and over again.
Have you watched The Leftovers?
No, I don't know it.
You don't know it? It's okay. Let me go first with this. For me, the best TV show ever is The Wire.
Oh yes, sure.
Okay, but second right now it could be The Leftovers.
Okay.
The Leftovers is absolutely genius. It's Damon Lindelof created it, and that's why literally HBO asked him to do Watchmen. I don't know if you watched the Watchmen TV show.
No, I haven't.
It's take it from me, who hated before Watchmen and all, and the Watchmen Scott Snyder, sorry, not Zack Snyder movie. I love the Watchmen TV show, and I know for a fact that
what's it on?
What?
What's
HBO.
it on?
It's both HBO. The Leftovers is HBO and Watchmen is HBO.
Oh, okay.
The Leftovers, I am not sure. Carolina will know, and somebody else on the chat. I don't really remember if Leftovers was 3 or 4 seasons and done, and Watchmen was just one. Lindelof told the story done. Yeah, Lindelof told the story he wanted to tell. Like in 8-9 episodes, and said, "I'm done. I don't have. This is the story I have." And HBO, which is, I was talking to Dave the other day, and it was really funny with Gibbons. Like, it's really funny that HBO respected when Lindelof said, "I am not continuing," and HBO said, "Okay, if the creators doesn't want to continue, we are not continuing Watchmen."
Yeah.
So he was like, "Remember us."
No, there's enough room now with streaming, especially, to be anything can be open to either longer or shorter. And HBO maybe was the first thing where the creators both Sopranos and The Wire were totally driven by one person.
Yeah.
Who said, okay, this is, whether or not he knew exactly what the ending was from the beginning, he knew when to stop.
Yes.
And so it makes sense.
But same with I don't remember the one that was a prison.
Oh, Oz.
What?
Oz?
No, the one in HBO. What?
Oz.
Oh, yeah. Sorry. Same thing. And same with Six Feet Under. Most of the stuff that HBO did in an era, the concept was it has a beginning, a middle, and an end. So,
right.
And this is the same thing. But with Watchmen, the fun was because they were saying HBO says, the creator of the TV show says enough, and they say, we are not doing another one with another creator. And he was like, well, I hope they did the same with us. That this
right.
is they did the same with us. So yeah, Carolina confirms Leftovers. The Leftovers was a total of 3 seasons. So like 10 episodes each, and it's really, really, really good stuff to see. There's there's another really one that I finished last week, which is the Defending Jacob, which is Chris Evans, Captain America, in Apple TV Plus. A kid is framed, and his dad, who's a lawyer. Let's say he doesn't. What?
It's a movie, though.
No, it's a TV show. It's a TV show. It's 4 or 5 episodes only. It's like really a mini series. Defending Jacob.
Okay.
And that's also interesting. But anyway, let's talk about TV shows and movies, etc. You said you're reading really few comics now. But is there any creator you're still following? Like this guy is doing a new book. I gotta get it.
It's hard now after the quarantine. There are always people that I'll want to be interested in knowing what they're doing. It doesn't always, and I follow. Inevitably, I'll follow an artist more than a writer, and it's best when both are really working well together, or with one person is doing everything. I'm a big. It kind of got lost. No, a lot of Stephen Frank's work I like a lot. He did a small book. I'm missing the name now. It's a woman's name. It was a very personal story for him, and it is just beautifully, minimally, very graphically done, visually. Can't remember the name. Anyway, I can go look it up. But a Rosalind. But people like Marcos Martin, anything he does, I'm interested in. Not always interested in the stories. Even Private Eye, it got too weird for me. But he's just a beautiful person and a beautiful artist, and I love everything he does. Really. I don't know. Name other names. I can't. I don't. I'm looking at my wall over here of books. It's so much old stuff or European stuff. Matthew Lafray is somebody I follow and just love his work. He's a French artist. Do you know him?
The name? Can you repeat, please?
Matthew Lafray.
Yes, Lafray. Yes, I do. Yeah. I do. Are you following any of the Argentinians? I mean, like Rizzo and any of the others, or more the classic ones?
I admire Rizzo. I can certainly see the talent. I'm not a big fan of his layouts, which is what a lot of people like. It's not the way I like to have a page go. And as far as the older Argentinians, they don't do much for me that much. I like a lot of what I've seen of the new, what Hugo and Hugo Pratt.
Yes.
Of what Ruben and
Juan Diaz Canales.
Yeah, Canales are doing. Anything Black Sad, but really anything that Guarnido does.
The last one, I don't know if you've seen the last one, El Buscón. The last one.
Big one.
El Buscón. That's an amazing book. I have him like a couple of weeks ago here.
He told me the story of it.
that's what we spent like 30 minutes just talking about the story of that book, the creation, his travels, and all that. And people were flipping out after that. And I was like, look, he doesn't take it for granted. He took 4 or 5 years to do this book because he wanted to do it right, and until he found the right work method with the writer, he went to watch. He did it exactly. The way that's why he's doing two Black Sabbath books one after the other now. Because he feels bad for one. He feels so bad. Right. He left him for 5 years. He was like, no, I'm doing two. It's like two together. When I'm finished one, I'm going to the other, just in case I change my mind and I decide to do something else, so Juan doesn't kill me.
Well, you can only do so much, and when you come across things that are important to you, that move you emotionally, you've got to follow them.
Yeah.
So I don't know if you can see anything on the wall here behind me.
Not in detail because you have two lights, one on each side.
Yeah, I know, and I can't do anything about that. They both have shades on them. But, yeah. Anyway, I have some of Juanito's sketches, original sketches from Arctic Nation up here. Mm-hmm. I have a Chuck Jones, an original Chuck Jones from The Grinch Who Stole Christmas.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, other stuff, and just Xerox copies of things I've made that I'll like Milton Caniff and Toph and Jack Davis, Frazetta, just pieces of mostly for the inking, and pieces that I'll use to inspire me. I've got some Ramita stuff here just taped to the table to inspire me.
Mm-hmm. I have a. Let me see if I can find it. Look what I have here.
That's great.
I got a team sale to inspire me, and then I have something to have fun with. You ready?
Yeah.
Wait.
What is that? That's Fury. Yeah,
it's a Rob Liefeld.
It's a Liefeld. Okay, I was going to say
the Liefeld Captain
America. The head looks like a Liefeld, but it's small enough to be Liefeld. Well, that's not bad.
All things considering,
yeah.
Somebody can say. And I got this,
with Rob.
And I got this just so you know, on Monday.
That's my phone. Hang on a second.
Yep.
I know. Yeah, okay. Are you calling to say goodbye? I'm being interviewed in Spain, honey. Bye.
Just we could cut.
She knows I was doing this too.
Yeah, well,
she thought I was starting at 8, and I tried to start at 8.
She's in charge. Yeah. There you go.
Yeah, but
Twilight Garcia Lopez.
Oh, okay. I love that top panel.
Let me get it closer.
Yeah.
Oh. Anyway, I'm gonna stop. Let me save this. The old weird stuff. I was trying to find this one. This is the one I was trying to find. You know what that is?
Who is it?
It's Dan Barry, Flash Gordon.
It's okay. Not Cyberry. Dan Barry. Okay.
Dan Barry. Yes. But anyway, enough with that. Let me see if somebody else has anything else to say, because I don't want to keep you and have your Susan killing me. So.
No, she went to work.
Okay. You spoke Dark Victory came out better than. Ah, I don't know what this. Yes, Noir. You said that Dark Victory came out better than Long Halloween. Why did you? Why did you think that? And would you
Well, I
do any
didn't say
future? And would you do any future work in black and white?
I'd love to work in black and white. Um, I don't think there's a market really for black and white. I think the what he's referring to, he or she is referring to, is the
It's Craig from your Facebook fan page.
oh, okay, the Batman Noir books,
Hmm.
the oversized books with
Yeah, he says TL, Dark Victory Noir and TLH
yeah,
Noir. Yes, sorry.
right. Well, I think there's more black on the page, and I was a better artist by the time I did Dark Victory than when I did Long Halloween. So that you take away the color from Long Halloween, the art doesn't work as well as it works, but it works much better, I think, in Dark Victory. And actually, I like. I mean, there's always going to be something to the first time you do something. So the idea of a year and a half of a Batman murder mystery, the first time you do it is going to be special. And the fact that we pulled it off at all amazes me, and I'll be eternally grateful for it. But I was better, and I think Jeff was better as artists by the time we got to Dark Victory.
It's a more well-rounded book, right? I mean, I
Well,
think that
it
Long Halloween has a lot of brilliant ideas, but Dark Victory is you were a lot more mature as creators, and it shows.
yeah, so it's a kind of give and take. I mean, the Long Halloween has a lot of things that were kind of, well, not original, but put together in a way that, in a kind of original way. And so that when you do that again, people automatically think, well, it's not quite as good as, or it was my first love. Dark Victory is good, but Long Halloween is still my first love. But I think all the way around, the coloring is better. Jeff's storytelling is better. His dialogue is better. The sense of pace, you feel less constricted. I felt that the way that he broke down each book was very obvious in Long Halloween, in that we had to have a Gordon story, a Batman story, and a villain of the month.
Mm-hmm.
And it felt more formulaic in that way. And even though a lot of that stuff was still kind of true in Dark Victory, it didn't feel anywhere near as, it felt more like just this is the way the story goes. It didn't feel quite as formula to me. And I knew I was better. And a lot of that is due to my relationship with Mark Chiarello, who, I mean, Archie was still alive while we were working on, Archie Goodwin was still alive while we were working on Long Halloween, although he was sick a good deal of the time. And Mark said that he would be okay editing Dark Victory as long as he didn't have to do very much. And we said, that's perfect. We don't want anybody to do. We're very comfortable doing what we do, and we would like to not to have any editorial interference. And he said, great, okay, let's do that. And and I saw he said some of this in your interview with him. he would call in the middle of the day, and we would talk for 3 or 4 hours. And I would say, Mark, you're my boss, and this is time I'm not working. I can't. If you think I'm drawing while we're talking, I am not. But it was immeasurably helpful in a camaraderie. We're all in this together as a team kind of feel. And he also was so much more, and all of this was before I had a computer at all. And Mark went to art school and graduated, and I did not. I took some drawing classes essentially at college, and then that's about my higher education. But Mark knew a lot more about illustrators and people outside of comics who were also very influential then to me. And so a lot of the design work, a lot of the ways of shaping a panel, of shaping a page, came from other illustrators, American illustrators, especially from the 40s, 50s, and 60s that Mark knew a lot about and really helped me with. But I really was very aware of how much, and this was true before Mark, just because it was Jeff and me, but how much I depend on a collaboration and a sense of working off of other people and closely helping shape
a real partnership, right?
Things, yeah, and so that times when I've worked with other people, or even working with Jeff, like on Cap, he was already starting to do a lot of other things, and so we weren't as close then, and I think it hurt the book. And I had a lot of my own stuff going on too. I was moving and relationship stuff and that kind of thing. That hurt that, but it. So working with Jeff and Mark, it wasn't there with Darwin. Darwin was very hard to reach. We didn't talk to each other very much. I had no idea where the storyline was going. Mark didn't have any idea where the storyline was going. In fact, and nobody's ever brought this up, but we didn't know if the Kryptonite Man, the creature within the Kryptonite, was evil or good or what. And the way that, especially on miniseries, the way that DC would work they wanted all the covers done long in advance so they could use them for promotion or even just for Diamond's catalog or something.
Yeah.
And so there's a cover where Superman is fighting this kryptonite creature, and he's not a villain at all. He's a benign character in this, and we didn't know. I said, Mark, what do we do? And well, he's got to be a villain. Anyway, so that was a kind of mess, and I really felt alone on it.
Mm-hmm.
That saddened me, and also took away some of my
joy,
ability to add extra.
Absolutely.
That's all.
And that connects with another question by La Berenjena Atómica, the Atomic Aubergine. Hello, Tim and David. Which writer would you like to work with that you haven't already worked with yet, if there's any?
Well, I worked with Bryson Azzarello on a short story in my issue of Solo. and I'd like to work with him again. He was easy to work with, and I think he has ideas. It's funny with the collaboration part. We just worked on the short story together, and he just sent me a script. So there wasn't really collaboration. So I'm not sure, but I know that a lot of what interests him interests me as well.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I'll tell you a story. He was recommended by Chi to me when I said I wanted to do a noir story in Solo, and who should write it. And he suggested Azzarello, and I got on the phone with Az and said, I really want to work with big panels, and 3 panels on a page as opposed to 5 or 6 panels on a page is a template that I'm not. I don't mean that's the only way it'll work, but if what I mean is that if you begin with thinking of it as fewer panels, we can always add a little bit more. And if you add a little bit more to a 5 or 6, suddenly it's a BD, and you've got 14 panels on a page. And so, and he said, no, I can't work like that. And I said, okay, I'm sorry to hear that. And then he called me a week later and he said, okay, I got a story. And it was perfect. Perfect. It may be my favorite thing in my issue of Solo. I love everything in it. Other people wrote just fantastic things for me, including Jeff. But it was just a great noir story. So Azzarello, I work with him again in a minute. It's hard to know. I like a lot of what Tom King does. Not everything, but when he's on it, he's one of the really top guys around, and it fits. When I say that, I also mean it fits what I like. He's really good with dialogue. He's very sentimental. The stories are sentimental, or that's a big part of what make them work. Even if it's, Elmer Fudd, it works on that level. But with Batman and Catwoman, it works on that level as well.
What about Rucka or Brubaker?
Well, then there are people like Brubaker or Snyder who I can admire, but I don't feel a
connection,
sympathetic connection.
No. Same with Rucka.
Same with Rucka. I approached Rucka when he was just beginning to write comics because I'd read some of his paperbacks and liked them. And he was one of the first guys I said 3 panels on a page to. And he was one of the first guys who said, no, I can't work that way. And so it didn't go anywhere. But also, I don't think we think along the same lines as to what kinds of stories we like to tell.
Well, we've been connecting for 99 minutes already, so let's cut it really soon. La Berenjena Atómica as Jason Aaron or Jeff Lemire?
I've never thought of Jeff Lemire. Who was the other one?
Jason Aaron.
He's the hillbilly, right?
Yeah, and Scalped.
Yeah. He's very intense. It would depend. I'd have to talk to him.
Mm-hmm.
But I like his work, and I like Lemire's work. Lemire is funny. I mean, he's one of those guys that came from indie. I mean, it's like having Dan Clowes write something, you know. But a lot of those guys have tastes that are really wide.
Yeah, absolutely.
And maybe if they wanted to draw their own stuff, they can't necessarily draw superhero-y stuff, and so they're going to write stories that are more in line with what they are
I
able to
haven't thought about it, but I can really see Lemire because of his tastes and because of what he draws when he draws himself, and because he always has one foot in, one foot out. I mean, mainstream and indie.
Right.
He always likes to keep both feet. So, yeah, that's
Well,
a good idea.
I haven't spoken with either. I've never met either one.
Mm-hmm.
No, I've barely met Jason, but it was in a group of people. I didn't really have a conversation with him.
Okay, so Felipe Brel, what was like creating? Oh, a question that I think somebody has asked a million times. What was it like to create the original artwork for Isaac Mendes on the Heroes TV show?
Oh, well, my usual answer is, or my old answer is, the first year was great. The years after that were not so good. I mean, they killed Isaac Mendes. So at first I thought, well, okay, I don't have a job. And then they found other ways to use artwork, but not as successfully. I think that was a mistake on the show's part. But it was an amazing experience. I mean, it took off. It was one of those things that just nobody saw it coming.
Mm-hmm.
None of the actors saw it coming. I never had any desire to work in movies or TV, really. Jeff suggested me to do to Tim Kring, to do some illustrations for the script he was writing, actual just illustrations for the script. And the next thing I knew, they were filming a pilot and wanted me to do some artwork. And everybody was, you know, it was great meeting people, and I went to set a few times. And once they figured out, you know, I worked in the props department. That was my section of the things. And so I worked with a woman named Gabe Perello, who was the props master on the pilot. She only worked on the pilot. She didn't work on after that in the series. Jeff didn't work on the pilot, but he then worked on the series as soon as the series began. But I kept saying to Gay, look, this will all go a lot better as soon as the directors and the producers figure out to film it first and then give me a screen capture. Because if you want it to, otherwise you're going to be describing something that you're going to have to try to recreate on film. And that's much harder. And one of the things, and I've said this before, and is all the way back to first working with Jeff, whose background was film. I would draw something and he would say, that's great. Can we move it in about 10 degrees, the camera in about 10 degrees to the right? And I said, you mean redraw it? Yeah, I could redraw it. But you're not just moving a camera. And I was actually in a writer's meeting where a director was asking me exactly that. And Jeff was there. And Jeff said, Yeah, he could redraw it if you want. I mean, Jeff just mimicked me back to the director. But once it got clear that it would, and all this happened in the pilot.
Mm-hmm.
You film it first. Everybody's life is easier.
Yeah, absolutely. That show should have only been one season.
Well, it could have been. It just completely lost its way. It was hurt by the writer's strike.
Mm-hmm.
The way everything was hurt by the writer's strike, but other shows came back from that. I think it felt like it just got disjointed, and that maybe Tim lost interest, Krang lost interest, or too many fingers in the pie.
To be honest, it just looked, and I loved the show, especially the first season. But it just looked like they just had ideas for one season, and then it was like, shit, we don't know what to do with it. We never thought we were going to be renewed. You know what I mean? And then we get to the point of, okay, now you told that story, now you have to expand it. We're like, okay, what do we win? We have no idea. So they just tried to, it was disjointed, as you said. It never looked again like it had a point.
Well, there were very few people that were, for a while, Brian Fuller was kind of a regular writer on the show, and his episodes really stood out.
Mm-hmm.
As one person was really sort of in charge of this episode. Yeah. It didn't have that feel
with the others.
Generally, it just was all over the place, and so it was hurt by that. And I don't know if that, for all I know, most episodic TV is like that, and we're just lucky we get anything good, which is why the HBO and now streaming stuff can be so much better, because you can let a creator say it's going to be X amount of episodes or X amount of seasons, and maybe like with Sherlock, we're only doing a certain amount of, we'll do 6 shows a year, or maybe every 2 years.
Or 4 years. We'll come with Sherlock. We'll come back when we come back. If we come back.
Or we won't. Or we won't. But like, again, like, The Wire, The Sopranos were maxi series. But there was a mind behind it that you could tell the whole time, guiding everything.
Yeah, like with David Simon, every single show, like Tremi, Sopranos, The Deuce, or the one he's doing now based on the Philip Roth, all of them, you can say he has an idea for a beginning, a middle, and end. That's it.
I haven't really liked anything else that he's done.
Yes.
But The Wire is just amazing. I've turned a lot of people on to The Wire.
I did again Tremi, however it's pronounced, until I went to New Orleans.
Treme,
thank you. I didn't get it until I went there. I went there a couple of times for a week or so, and I literally came back, watched it again, and I was like, now I get it. I don't know if that's good or bad for a show, but, I got into it, and then I was like, now I get what he wants to tell.
Well, especially coming from Spain, maybe you really needed to. But I didn't know Baltimore. I still don't know Baltimore, but I know the inner cities in America. I know a lot of the issues that it was dealing with, not intimately, but.
No, that's a really good point. Because you didn't know Baltimore, but you love The Wire anyway. But with Tremi, doesn't matter if you love New Orleans or know it or not. That's a really good point.
But things like The Fall or Bodyguard, where it's so limited, And there are other shows on Netflix that have been like that too. Godless was really good. Anyway, to have a guiding light, and it just didn't have it. Heroes just didn't have it.
Yeah, that's the good part of the streaming wars, that creators have been told on Netflix, HBO, Amazon, and Apple TV Plus, whatever else I'm forgetting about. They have been told, this is your show, do whatever you want, because I know that if I don't let you do it, you are going to go to the other one.
Well, Bosch on Amazon Prime is a good example also of you've got the writer of the books who is still writing the books.
Which one, sorry?
Bosch.
Bosch. Yeah, of course, yeah.
And he's a part of the show.
Mm-hmm.
And he's found an actor that is very, very into it and very sympathetic to the show and to the character. And it's got its own voice.
Mm-hmm.
And you can, but that could just keep on going as long as anybody wants to keep it on going.
Yeah, it's the same that
there's no reason for it to end.
It's the same as with The Expanse. The Expanse, the writers of the books are involved as producers and writers on the TV show.
Right.
So they are, continuing their writing at the same time the show is going. So it's going to continue at least until the writers decide this is the end of the books of the saga.
Right.
Anyway, guys, I've kept Tim here for 110 minutes already, almost 2 hours, and the man has a life. I don't. He has. So I think we've better go off. Maybe we will repeat it if he wants, and you guys want, and if he had fun. Maybe we will cut this and say, never again, you motherfucking asshole. Maybe. Not in that language, but maybe.
Well, I'd be happy to do it again.
What?
I'd be happy to do it again, especially if we can find a kind of along the lines of what we've been talking about. Let's talk about one or two things.
Yeah.
And really maybe get into more detail about it.
I love it because, always when I do it first time with a creator, I prefer to be freewheeling, just talk a bit about everything. And then if there's a second time, that's when we focus on a subject. So right. I love it. I love that idea. But anyway, thank you so much, Tim. Okay. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, David.
Missed you a lot. Hope to see you again really soon. But if it's not really soon, at least soon enough.
Well, let's get a vaccine going and we'll try to make that work.
Yes. And I will go back as soon as I can there, and you change your president. Just so you know. While you have that guy, you know what? I'm not really feeling safe. Like I'm not going to be sent by immigration as soon as I set foot on an airport.
No.
Let's leave it there.
Every damn day. It's just worse and worse all the time. I wish there was a better system. I wish there was a better way of nominating. And I have very lukewarm feelings about Biden. The strongest thing about Biden is that he's not Trump.
There you go.
But I'd like it to be more than that.
Let's hope.
End up feeling that much more.
I have my hopes on the VP choice. I mean,
because
he gotta go
really wants
to win. My opinion from outside, and I have no clue, of course, that if he wants to win, he has to really go really progressive.
Well, I don't. Susan is as progressive as they come. And in fact, well, no, I won't get into detail. And we don't always agree on how powerful the progressive movement is. I would consider myself a progressive, but I have some more pragmatic parts of myself than Susan does, I think. And I think there are a lot of very talented VP candidates out there who probably couldn't successfully run for president. And so, yeah, it's an opportunity, especially because of his age and everything. It's an opportunity to appoint somebody. And I think everybody knows that he wants to be a one-term president, which would mean he's already sort of handing off the next nominee to the vice president. And that's why he's got to be very careful about it.
Yeah, that's why I think he's taking so long, right? Because people keep saying he's taking too long. Maybe it's because he's going to know he's going to hand the presidency, blah, 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 in one term, what you said.
He knows it's important. Yeah.
You think it's going to be Kamala?
I don't blame you for feeling that way about Trump and coming to America.
Do you think it's going to be Kamala?
I don't know. I actually like Kamala a lot. She's too law and order for Susan.
But she crushed it this week with the speeches and all that. I think she was like...
I thought she crushed it a lot as a candidate. But she had to change her... She had a number of things in her past as a prosecutor. She didn't have a great answer for, except that she doesn't feel that way anymore. And that's a hard thing to believe somebody when they're running for anything.
Yeah.
That was me in the past. I don't feel that way anymore.
Yeah. I would love to be Elizabeth Warren, but I guess
I don't see Warren. Almost any of the half a dozen black women.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. That I would like her to be Warren, but I don't think it's the time. Or he needs a female black VP.
And also, that would be just somebody else over 70 who's white.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, she's even older.
She's a female progressive, but there are other places for.
That's why I heard that Elizabeth Warren would be get in charge of Congress. I think it's Congress or Senate. I don't remember what I heard about that. So that's going to be her position. That could be her position, and then Kamala or another black female candidate to be on the VP nomination.
There's certainly a lot of talk about any other black female candidate. I like them all for different reasons. Kamala would be my pick, just for more practical reasons. I do like her also, but I don't go by likable.
Yeah. No, I don't think it's likable. I mentioned Kamala because I think she's the one that can help him win.
A lot of things about her I like. But Klobuchar's been talked about recently. That'd be okay. She's much more middle of the road, but that may make her more comfortable for Biden. I'm not sure that's a good idea. Nothing will keep me from whatever he does. I will vote for him. But it is the interesting part of it, is the VP. So
anyway, that was a big long epilogue with politics.
Yeah.
Don't.
Okay, well, thanks, David. Thank you, everybody out there in computer land. Sorry.
Don't cut. I want to say proper goodbye after we cut with people here.
Okay.
To you all, thank you. Muchas gracias. Tomorrow, mañana, with us, con nosotros, R. Meguera. Hasta mañana. See you tomorrow in 3,